Alma came from a Christian family. Her parents were dedicated Christians who taught her to live with godly virtues. They made sure she grew up knowing what was right and wrong. They prayed every morning and evening. They went to church every Sunday, and they always told her to stay away from boys and keep herself pure. Their home was small but peaceful, nestled in a quiet neighborhood in Abuja. The walls were lined with Bible verses, and the smell of her mother's cooking often filled the air. Alma's father, a strict but loving man, always wore a serious face when talking about sin. Her mother, gentle and warm, supported her husband but always had a soft spot for Alma. They were respected members of their church and often hosted prayer meetings in their living room. Alma was a quiet girl who listened to her parents. But when she turned 17, her life took a turn. She met Michael, a young man who was charming and sweet. He made her feel special, like she was the only girl in the world. They met at a church youth event. He wasn't a member, but had come with a friend. He had a warm smile and a smooth way of talking. He would wait for her after choir practice and walk her home. Sometimes they would sit in the park near her street and talk for hours. He told her stories, made her laugh, and said she was beautiful. Alma had never felt so seen. 2 months later, Alma stood frozen in a pharmacy restroom, staring at the pregnancy test in her trembling hands. The small bathroom smelled of antiseptic and the faint metallic tang of the plumbing. 2 pink lines. Positive. Her reflection in the mirror showed wide, terrified eyes. Outside, she could hear the pharmacist chatting with customers about the rising price of malaria medication. The fluorescent light above her flickered erratically. "What will Papa say?" she whispered to herself, pressing a hand to her still flat stomach. The sound of a baby crying in the shop made her jump. She stuffed the test in her bag and rushed out, nearly colliding with a pregnant woman entering the pharmacy. That night, lying in bed, Alma placed her hands on her abdomen. Somewhere beneath her palms, a tiny heart was beating. She trusted him, and before long, he got her pregnant. Sunday dinner was always like a feast in their household. The smell of jollof rice and chicken filled the small dining room. Alma pushed food around her plate, her appetite gone. "Alma, you've been quiet all week," her father observed, wiping his mouth with a napkin. The overhead light reflected off his bald head. "Is something troubling you?" Her mother paused, the serving spoon hovering over the rice pot. "Are you feeling sick? You've barely eaten." Alma's hands shook so badly her fork clattered against the plate. Tears welled up and spilled over. I'm pregnant," she whispered. The silence that followed was deafening. Her father's chair scraped loudly against the concrete floor as he stood up abruptly. When she told her parents, they were angry and disappointed. Her father beat her and called her names. He said she had brought shame to the family, that she had destroyed her life and destiny. Alma was heartbroken. Her mother cried silently in the corner. Alma could not take the pain at home anymore. One night, after a loud argument, she packed a small bag and left. She decided to run away to a different city. She went to Ibadan to stay with Michael, hoping he would support her. The city was big and noisy. Alma was scared but hopeful. When she got to Michael's house, he was surprised to see her. He did not know she was pregnant. He thought she was just visiting. When she told him the truth, he became upset. He told her he was not ready to be a father. "Why didn't you tell me before coming?" he shouted. "You should have stayed at home." Alma cried and begged him to let her stay, but he was cold. He walked out and slammed the door. That night, Alma sat on the floor, hugging her belly, and wondering what she had done. Alma knew she had nowhere else to go. She found a nearby hospital in the area and registered for antenatal care. The hospital was big and popular, with gray paint and modern chairs. The doctor in charge was named Dr. George Daniels. He was a kind-looking man who ran the hospital with his wife, a quiet woman who was also a doctor in the hospital. When Alma came for her antenatal checkup, she lay on the examination table as the doctor examined her. Dr. George's kind eyes studied her over his glasses as he explained the prenatal care schedule. He saw how young and helpless she looked. He always gave her a kind smile. "You're too young to be going through this alone," he said. Later, at home, Dr. George and his wife, Dr. Mrs. Daniels, discussed her condition. Dr. George told her about Alma, a young pregnant teenager who ran away from home. He was thinking of the possibility of them adopting her baby. They agreed to approach her for adoption. Mrs. Daniels was very happy and expectant. "This is the best news I have heard in years," she told her husband. They were married for 10 years without a child. That night, she went to bed singing, rejoicing, and praising God. After some visits, Dr. George called Alma aside and made the request. "Alma," he began gently, "have you considered other options for your baby?" He asked if she would allow him and his wife to adopt her baby after delivery. Alma was shocked. She quickly said no. "He is my baby," she said firmly. "I will keep him, no matter what." Later, Michael also tried to convince her to give up the baby. He said it would be the best thing for everyone. "Alma, we can't raise a child now. We don't even have jobs," he said. But Alma refused. She had made up her mind. But she was surprised that Michael became very nice to her after that. He started bringing her food, talking kindly, and promising to support her. Alma was confused, but she welcomed the kindness. When she finally gave birth to a baby boy, she named him Jesse. He was beautiful and perfect. He had her nose and his father's eyes. Alma held him close and cried tears of joy. But the joy did not last long. When the hospital brought her the bill, it was too much. Alma had no money to pay. She cried and begged them to help her. But they said she could not leave until she paid the full amount. Dr. George met with her again. He asked if she would now consider giving up the baby for adoption. She still refused. So the hospital told her she could stay at the end of the corridor on the hospital floor with her baby until she could pay. It was cold, lonely, and hard. Every night, she curled up on the floor beside her son. Nurses passed by and looked at her with pity. Some gave her food in secret. Others ignored her. Day after day passed, until a full week had gone by. Alma asked the hospital if they could give her a cleaning job, so she could start paying her bill. They said they did not need a cleaner, but they would let her clean for a small amount, only 10,000 naira every month. Her bill was 300,000 naira. That meant she would have to work for more than 2.5 years just to clear it. Alma had no choice, so she accepted. One rainy night, after a long day of cleaning, Alma and her baby Jesse lay on the floor. Jesse had just been circumcised that day. Alma covered him carefully to protect him from the cold. She hummed softly to him and whispered prayers. But when she woke up the next morning, Jesse was gone. She screamed. She cried. She ran up and down the hospital. She begged for help. "Please, my baby." Someone took him, but no one knew where the baby was. Not even Dr. George could explain. Alma felt like she was going mad. She could not eat. She could not sleep. Her son was gone, and no one had any answers. After a few days, the hospital discharged her without payment. They told her to leave. She walked out of the hospital with nothing, but she swore she would not rest until she found her son. Alma kept coming back to the hospital, hanging around the gate, asking people if they had seen her baby. She stayed around for 6 months, but there was no sign of Jesse. No clue, no answer. Broken and hopeless, she finally decided to return home to her parents, as Michael had asked her to leave. It was hard, but they took her in. Her father was silent. Her mother hugged her and wept. Her parents did all they could to find their stolen grandson, even involved the police, but all their efforts yielded no result. Alma later gained admission into the university. She tried to focus on her studies, even though the pain of her lost child still haunted her. While at the university, she met a kind man who later became her husband. They fell in love and got married while she was still in school. He was patient and gentle. He listened to her when she cried and never judged her past. She gave birth to a baby girl and named her Emily. Emily brought a new kind of joy to her life. Alma slowly began to heal. She decided to close the chapter of her stolen son and move on. It was too painful to carry every day. 18 years later, Emily got admission to study in the UK. Amma was so proud. They went to the airport together, holding hands and crying. "Make me proud," Amma whispered. In the UK, Emily met a young man named David. He was in his 4th year in medical school, and he became a very good friend to her. He helped her settle, showed her around, and even helped with her studies. Emily always spoke about David to her mother. She would call Amma and say good things about him. Amma was happy that her daughter had found such a helpful friend. She even started speaking with him on the phone whenever she called Emily, and he was with her. One day, during a video call, Emily gave the phone to David to speak with Amma. The moment Amma saw him, she froze. David had a birthmark on his forehead. It looked exactly like Jesse's. Amma's heart skipped. She started stammering. She tried to smile, but her mind was racing. Could it be? Could this young man be her lost son? That night, Amma could not sleep. She kept remembering Jesse's face. The birthmark, the missing baby, and now this boy in the UK, with the same birthmark, same age. She had never told Emily about Jesse. She had kept that part of her life a secret. Amma decided to find out more about David. She asked Emily questions and did her research. She discovered that David was 21 years old. He came from Abadan. His father was a doctor. It shocked her. She traveled back to Abadan and began asking around. She found out the owner of the hospital where she gave birth was Dr. George Daniels. David's full name was David Daniels. She also found out that Dr. George had only one child, a son studying in the UK. She also discovered that it took Dr. George and his wife 10 years after marriage to have a child, and it was that same year she gave birth to Jesse. Everything matched. She went back to Abuja with a heavy heart. She called Emily and asked for David's birthday. It was the same as Jesse's. She also confirmed David's dad's name was George. Now she was sure. David was her son. But how could she prove it? Should she confront Dr. George? He was rich, powerful, and well-connected. If she accused him, he might silence her. Amma decided to use a different path. Since Emily and David were close friends, she would go through her daughter. First, she made sure Emily was not in a romantic relationship with David. That would be a big problem if they were siblings. She did not tell Emily the full truth yet. She only said she wanted to know more about who Emily spent time with. Emily became curious. She asked her mother why she wanted to know so much about David. Amma said she just wanted to be sure her daughter was safe. One day, Amma told Emily her story. She said she had a son who was stolen from her at birth. She told her everything about David, pointing out that he could be her missing son. Then she told Emily to playfully ask David to do a DNA test with her, just for fun. Emily agreed. Emily and David carried out the test. When the results came out, both Emily and David were shocked. The DNA showed they were half-siblings. David was confused. He asked if it meant his dad had a secret child. He bought 2 more DNA kits to check again. The results were the same. He wanted to call his parents, but Emily told him to speak to her mother first. So they called Amma. Amma told them everything. She told them how she gave birth at 17, how her baby went missing, how she cried and screamed, and how she suspected Dr. George but had no proof. David was speechless. David did not believe the story. He knew his parents could not do such a thing. They're good people. He got angry with Emily and her mother for making such an allegation against his parents. He trusted his parents. They had given him a good life. He could not believe they could do such a thing. But he asked himself, the DNA test cannot lie. So how was he a half-sibling to Emily? David was torn. Could his parents have lied to him all these years? Could they have stolen him? He stopped answering their calls. He was angry, hurt, and confused. His parents noticed the change. They were worried. They traveled to the UK to see him. When they arrived, David confronted them. He asked, "How could you do such a thing to a poor, helpless girl?" They were confused, and they asked him, "What girl?" David broke down and cried all the pain out, and told them what he found out. They tried to deny it at first, but he brought out a DNA test kit and requested a DNA test with them to confirm if they were his biological parents. His mother broke down in tears. She confessed. They had been married for 10 years without a child. They tried everything, but nothing worked. When they met a young girl who was pregnant and registered in their hospital, they asked her to give the child up. She refused. They persuaded her, but she insisted she would keep her baby. They offered to pay her a huge amount and also to train her at university, but she still refused. Michael, the girl's boyfriend, then approached them. He asked for money to give them the baby. He told them they were not planning to keep the child, and he arranged with them how he could steal the child after he was born. They were desperate, and they believed they had a better life to offer the child than his young teenage mother. They decided to pay him, and gave him the hospital's backdoor key, with which he entered and stole the baby. They paid him and took the baby. "That baby was you," she said. "We are sorry." His mother cried. David was shocked. He was angry at his parents, but also grateful, because they were the best parents anyone could have asked for. They had raised him well. He forgave them. He begged Amma to forgive them. He said they made a mistake, out of desperation. Amma cried. She finally found her son after 21 years. Her heart was full. The pain of all those years started to heal. She raised charges against Dr. George and Michael. She was angry with Dr. George and his wife for making her miss 21 years of her son's life. But for David's sake, she dropped the charges against Dr. and Mrs. Daniels. They committed a very big crime, which might get them a very long jail term, and she would have been happy to ensure they get that. But that would have caused friction between her and her son. They raised Jesse well. Probably she wouldn't have given him a good life with Michael if they had not taken him. And they will always be part of his life. They will always be his parents. She has to forgive them. And this is a journey she is willing to embark on. For now, her heart had found peace. As for Michael, the authorities eventually caught up with him. He was arrested and charged for his part in the crime. Months later, Amma stood in the arrivals hall of the airport, clutching a small flower bouquet. The sharp scent of antiseptic cleaner mixed with the faint aroma of fast food from the nearby restaurants. Travelers rushed past, their rolling suitcases clicking against the tiled floor. When David and Emily appeared through the gates, David's face lit up at the sight of her. He dropped his bags and enveloped her in a hug that lifted her off her feet. The citrusy scent of his cologne surrounded her. "I'm home, Mama," he whispered in her ear. And for the first time in over 2 decades, Amma truly believed it. The past couldn't be changed, but the future, their future as a family, stretched before them, bright with possibility. She was reunited with Jesse, her long-lost son, and she was finally whole again. In the months that followed their reunion, Amma and David worked hard to build a real relationship. It wasn't always easy. Sometimes, Amma would get overwhelmed by the years they had lost. Other times, David struggled with guilt, feeling torn between the parents who raised him and the mother who bore him. But every time they sat down to talk, something beautiful happened. A bridge formed between their hearts. With each conversation, the gap between the past and the present narrowed. Amma's husband, now a quiet and steady part of her life, welcomed David like a son. Emily was overjoyed to discover that the friend she had admired for so long was actually her brother. She often joked, "Now I understand why we clicked so well. We're blood." Meanwhile, Dr. George and his wife withdrew from the public eye. Their reputation was damaged. Many in the community were shocked by the truth, especially those who once admired them. But despite the scandal, David remained respectful. "They made a terrible mistake," he told people. "But they loved me. They gave me a good life. They will always be my parents." David was happy. He had a new family now, a beautiful younger sister, and a mom who had been looking for him for 21 years. She had found him now, and he was going nowhere. Dear viewers, this story teaches that a mother's love is unbreakable, and that truth will always come to light, no matter how long it takes. It shows that desperate choices can have lifelong consequences, but forgiveness can bring healing. Most importantly, it reminds us that hope, faith, and persistence can lead to justice and restoration. What did you learn from the story? Let me know in the comments section. Thank you for watching. Please do not forget to subscribe for more stories. Also, turn on the notifications